Late night bullshit. Curated Tumblr, fascist genetics. How fucking arrogant can you be to think any eugenics program could ever weed out fascist genetics? So, this is a protein that gets made during your embryonic cell state as you're growing in the womb, along with an mRNA. Okay? That's simple shit, right? You probably know that. That's what effectively sequences the two chromosomes you get from your parents. Now, you can brute force, statistically speaking, all of those genetics that show off those specific individuals and the nurture they're in that helped reinforce it. Okay, that's an mRNA rate expression, the neuronal connections, which you can do that, and also even those chromosomes, which, yes, you can absolutely figure out how to statistically brute force whether or not they show up in any individuals like this. If you say you're wrong, it's like, well, then that's most likely going to just end up being, of course, the brain's synaptic processing unit. So, like, this is basic shit, right? Like, I can say a word salad, doesn't matter. It doesn't really mean anything, you stupid idiot, right? What it means is there's a processor here that works like this, and it's more heavily weighted to influence you and bias you to like these given types of activities and views, especially with the emotional amygdala and hippocampal and prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex gives you this logic, the amygdala gives you this emotional, the hippocampal is a fight or flight, adrenic neurological response. Now, all of that really means is that it influences and impacts you to head towards those given ideologies, okay? And you're more likely to be made to believe that, all right? That's simple shit. Now, obviously, your genetics do play a role heavily in how that gets set up. So you're wrong from the start, clearly. You can genetically do all that you want to that, and you can statistically brute fucking force the shit out of that. So you were already wrong. Now, the dark tiered traits are also based upon, of course, nurture as well, which you can influence nurture to be better for those individuals and watch as the brains form such that they are more heavily weighted one way or another over time, like that. Clearly, when you do that, that means you can weed them out. So, no, you're not on Jupiter to try and do that. In fact, really what you're trying to say is, I don't trust anyone that would try and do this because, no, we are not making sure everybody, and I don't have the time to ultimately make sure that they don't do it incorrectly. And there's a lot of, philosophical, ethical, moral concerns that I would have to be a part of, and I'd have to talk about it, and it's really hard. And I'm like, shut up, fuck off. Let us do it then. Go away. You don't care. Most of this is something that gets done in your everyday life anyways for many, many things, for what it's worth. Like, you trust corporations to do things, you trust governments to do things, and more. But if you don't, that's okay, because ultimately they're shit at doing it and they take advantage of you. So when you think about that, it's like, I have an idea, and it says that I'm really terrified of this being done, right? And it's like, right. But because you're a scared little pussy bitch baby that doesn't want to actually really involve themselves to make it so it doesn't go that way, you're stupid as fuck, right? That means, effectively, I'm not going to try and get it done, right? That's what that is. So instead of actually trying to get a solution going, any of that, really, you go, it shouldn't be done because I'm afraid, right? And it's like, and we're on every continent on this planet. So fuck off. We did do that. There are people that are afraid of going across the fucking ocean that was flat, apparently, on boats. You're wrong. This has to happen. Eventually, you have to do something as a species to remove that which is obviously going to be bad for you as a species. You have to do that. So, knowing that that's obviously possible, it's not just obvious, it's like statistically, not even just statistically, not just like anything. It's not even possible. We've already done this in other ways. So, like, effectively, you're wrong. And anarchists, which I love this one, anarchists, they didn't understand that, like, a fucking basic philosophy of many multitudes of many different people effectively means, like, depending on who you ask, they're all just a bunch of echo chamber bubbles, right? Of statistical bell curves that intersect at different opportunistic points that you then see and then alter your perception of one thing or another of a given definition of what that means. Okay, now what that means then is, of course, that will change for you and others as you thought you were correct about this, or you thought you were wrong about that, but you were not. All right, like this person, whoever they are, let's just imagine this person that is clearly wrong, saying that that can't be done. You can't statistically do that, right? And it's like, all right, that's simple. Anybody can imagine that person. I mean, they're probably, everyone hates them, right? Like, they're always a pedantic, semantic shithead, right? So, like, when you think about it, it's like, behold, the pedantic, semantic shithead goes, the historical says this is the only anarchy. And I'm like, the rulers, okay, like, let's talk about the rulers here. You have the FDA, right? That's an authoritarian fascist regime that controls your medication. You have to have that. Historically, you do way worse if you don't have it. You say they're always really stupid if they don't ultimately want it, right? So if you know that, then it's like, look at you, the friends that you have. There's a person that then usually plans for you and or does whatever meetup for your anarchy or some fad bullshit to effectively have you do one thing or another that's cool for the anarchists and more, all right? So you're wrong in the first place. There's already leaders. That's how that works. Different people will ultimately be better at one thing or another, and you'd go to them for those things. That's simple as shit. You're obviously going to do that. So anarchist manner means basically a human manner that's more empathetic and sympathetic about it. Stop being a shithead. Lose the stupid dumbass bullshit. Godzilla deactivated 2022-0127. Which then I got like fucking this, which like, geez, I get the fact that you want to look like, trigger your social justice warrior, it's fucking hilarious, the meme, whatever, you know what I mean? But do you ever see some discourse float by and think, maybe I'm not hanging out on the worst parts of Tumblr, actually? And I'm like, no, I don't even hang out on Tumblr, but like, look at this, it's Reddit. Now, I'm not going to show that because clearly, it's just fucking lame after a while. But like, whatever. You know what I mean? It's just the simple shit that's like, yeah, no, you can do that. That's a fact. And like, you might not know what that protein is, and truthfully speaking, you probably don't need to. You're probably not going to. You're probably not a biologist. You know what I mean? Like, it's irrelevant to your everyday life. But as a person that just keeps going into things, like, no, I went through that in my biohacking YouTube channel playlist. Those things exactly, like how to do that. Like, this whole thing is like, wow, so you're clearly wrong about that. That's clearly how you can do that. Like, that's obvious as fuck. But if I keep saying and I keep doing this and like, you're wrong, I'm going to say it back to you because clearly that's what I'm going to do, right? And it's like, that's easy. I can neurolinguistically program you to continuously be that obstinate, that kind of thing, right? And it's easy to see that, like, I get angry and you don't know anything, and then I'm going to fucking think about this in the shower, and I'll fucking look at myself in the mirror or something and be like, he didn't know, but, he was right about that, and I know that, but I actually am scared, and, and it's like, all right, so I've already got you, so let's skip forward to like, all right, so you've learned about these things, and not just the mRNA, which is how the mitosis effectively sequences those chromosomes, which, let's take a look at senescent cells, all right? Like, senescent cells definitely do 100% get triggered by those very same things that then tell them that while they're a zombie cell, they are not going to turn into cancer, okay? There's a way that happens. That's exactly what that is. That is how that then propagates through generations. That's a type of different epigenetics, which they made that illegal, except you can get it done in a legal manner. There are loopholes there. And so, depending on what you decide to do here, you effectively go, so I shouldn't go after manipulative, terrible people that are psychopathic, that are violent, that are heavily weighted, and like ultimately changed the nurturing, so our government, our society, and how we run and we teach and we do all the rest of that education stuff effectively to make Godzillas and misdemeanors over here finally understand things, right? But it's like, no, that's what you're doing anyways. That's called education, you fucktard. So like, you were already wrong in the first place. right? Like every fucking time I see this, it's like you were wrong, you were already wrong, then you continue to keep being wrong, and it's like still seeing the lack of results of what you're trying to do. And so a smarter person comes along, like myself, that goes, shut the fuck up, I'm going to do it anyways because I know what's best for you, and that's what that is. You know what I mean? It's like, we actually do know what we're talking about, so we're going to do this. And you, the child that doesn't know that it's actually fine, well, suck it up, you'll be fine. You know what I mean? But it's like, that's a societal thing. A lot of people will do that. And I would probably go to one of you for one thing or another that you know more than I do, right? That's simple, okay? But like, no, fascism is bad. And it's like, it depends here on what we're talking about. That's the real truth of the matter. Like, a lot of things are very dependent on the context and situation of what we're talking about. And depending on that perspective too, which it's like, well, no, we do need an authoritarian kind of regime and fascist regime that enforces things to be good for us, because otherwise people will take advantage. Okay, which is like getting rid of the fascist genetics. Woo, that's terrible, right? But no, we're getting to take advantage of the terrible, like, gabagoo, manipulative, psychopathic, narcissistic, megalomaniac. You know, we'll use any excuse effectively in the book to manipulate people, etc., etc. You know what I mean? Like, we need more Pol Pots to be a possibility, especially in a climate like this. Really? Are you sure? I don't think so. But programmatically, yes, no, that's how your brain, like, over time weights itself. Like, it influences itself to head towards those things, to then enjoy those things more around with other people. So it's a positive feedback loop to itself. That's your genes doing that. So, like, that leads you to be like that, along with ultimately how they express themselves based upon their environmental nurturing aspect. So, no, you were wrong to begin with, which it's like, so fuck off, Godzilla. It doesn't matter. You were never going to be right about that. But it's really just like, there isn't a way to do that without effectively a bunch of us constantly watching and making sure. We could never do that. But that would, you know, then other people would put them, you know, like in our own FCC and the FDA and more, and make it so that way that they can take advantage of. Oh, really? So we wouldn't want to try and stop that. You know, with money that can't be spent there. But wait, no, we're not getting anywhere on that as well. And what you're saying is your failing of the system, which needs to be redesigned, is there in your face, and you're afraid of effectively not being able to do anything about that failure. And you know it's going on, and there's nothing you can do to leave the failure, or change the failure, or fix the failure, or any of the rest of it, right? So, knowing that, really what you're really angry about is, you guessed it, a whole bunch of people already are like this, you know you can't do anything to make it any better, and it's a redirection of your anger because it might get directed by those terrible people towards you. That's what that is. It would change into this, you'd be tall or handsome and intelligent. Well, is that a bad thing? Like, actually? Like, what the fuck? Like, what kind of like, it'd be your parents that are fucking making you. So, whatever version they want, right? Whatever that ends up becoming. But then it's like, wait, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's the gays, right? Like, we'd be getting rid of the transsexuals and gays, right? I'm like, that's if you let them do that. Anarchy does mean that there's a certain fundamental way to make sure that they don't do this. You know what I mean? Sometimes there is a reason to fight. I'm just saying, you know?